going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Trick 10s. For all the new guys, my name is Matt Downs. We are building the baddest John boat ever. This is Project X, Part 3. We do this all the time, so I appreciate you guys. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'm going to get right into this build, guys. This is the 1652 weld-built, big build of the year. This thing is turning out sick. I've got all the hatches in the front deck, picking up right where we left off, got the live well installed, and now it's time for me to start doing some more framing. I've got a couple of pins that I'm going to put up in the front of the live well. It's basically going to be storage for that big hatch up there, and I wanted to put that in one piece. I also have a couple of pieces that I cut that are going to be basically the sleeve for the box for the rod locker. I got to get those in there too because there's some big pieces. Once I get those in there, I'm going to go ahead and make this front deck permanent, and then I'm going to start framing from that deck back to this rear bench seat. This thing is going to be sick. I'm trying to get all these hatches wrapped up in the next couple of days. I want to take them over to the powder coaters. Now the color, they're getting powder coated. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a sick build, guys. Let's get back to work. I'm going to tell you guys how I'm making this whole rod box right here. Now this thing, pretty sick. I mean, basically the way I figured this whole thing out, it's going to run along these ribs right here. Now I made some pieces that are going to go on this side. I could make this whole thing out of one piece, but I have tons of these drops and they're all like 4 foot long. So it makes a lot of sense for me to use them up. So all I did in the center here, you can see I just spliced a little backer plate on there. And this is all going to be getting covered with turf. You'll never know it was in two pieces, but it saves me a lot. And it's actually going to have a third piece before it goes into the fourth piece, which receives up into the front existing deck. But this piece right here, it comes up 8.5 inches and it comes over 6 7/8 of an inch. Now the way I figured that out is obviously the rod locker box is going to stop right here. So from this point up to this floor rib right here. Now the one up front, that one tapers up at a big angle. So we couldn't do it all the way to there. So we're gonna go to here, we're gonna have to piece from here to there. Now I did make this little sleeve piece here. I still gotta put sides on it, but I got the base for it already made. So look, the way I figured this out, now this is my live well box. So keep in mind, this live well is getting wrapped with 1-inch foam. I'm gonna have 1-inch closed cell foam around it. And then I'm gonna wrap that with some of the HVAC tape. And that's gonna give me exactly 1 inch on this side. So all I did was measure from this point right here over to the live well. I subtracted 1 1/16 inches, and that's what I made this piece right here. Now, if you're gonna do that, you gotta take into consideration that all of these floor ribs are gonna be a little bit different. So I pulled a straight edge. Basically just like that. This piece is gonna split the difference here, and this one's up against the side. Well, same thing back here. It's up against the weld here, right up against the side. And then in the center here, it's off a little bit. You can see it's got a gap. That is the whole reason that you need to put a straight edge across here, because if I would have went off this one right here, then that would have been off. It would have made everything not fit in here and drop down the way I want it to. So now that I've got this figured out, obviously I got to come back and I'm gonna have to cut it off at this angle across here. And I'm gonna have to finish this thing off on the inside right here. But this backside is done. And once the hatch drops in here, it's gonna come down and cover that up. You won't be able to tell this doesn't go all the way up to the top. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna continue this piece of 1-inch foam. It's gonna come in here between my live well and this piece all the way up. Then on the outside, I'll sheet that with some 040 just to bring it here, back here, then across this side right here. But now that I got this piece figured out, I've got two other pieces right here. Let's get a smaller one just for reference. So you can see what I did with this. Now this piece I bent basically the same angle that you see right here. And I just put a piece of cardboard up here and traced it last night before I went to the shop and bent this piece. I made it a little bit light so when it sucks down, it will be tight. But I'm gonna take these pieces, I'm gonna come across the side with them. You see how that rib is right there? It lines right up against that rib. And you come back, we'll put a rivet through here into that rib. Before we do that, we're gonna pack this whole side in here with foam and up underneath the floor. But this is how the whole box is going to be constructed. And we'll pick up this piece from down here and run it down. We've got another one we're gonna put up there. The way I'll install this piece, I'll come through here, I'll shoot my rivets down through here, pull them tight, and then I'll put them through this piece into that side rib right there. It's a good way to do your rod box if you want to do it in pieces, because a lot of times you can't get all this stuff up underneath this deck in one piece unless you put that in first, and it's kind of hard to do it that way, especially if it's your first build. So this could help you guys out. I'm going to get that live well wrapped with some insulation, and I'm going to get some tape on it, and then I'm going to get this stuff installed in here and figure out exactly how it's going to sit. That way I can start framing from here back. Let's get back to work. All right, so check it out. This is pretty dope. This is the piece I just showed you. I'm gonna put in the floor right here. I went ahead and I wrapped this live well on this face. I put 2 pieces of 3/4 inch foam here, and then I skinned over that with HVAC tape. And on this side down here, I put 2 pieces of 1/2 inch foam to make it 1 inch thick. Now what that did to me was space this off where I want it to be. And I'll suck this thing in tight. And then I'll also be able to come through here and shoot rivets through this. So this is kind of like a whole package deal where this pan is gonna meet up with this. And the wall for this rod locker ends up being the wall for this internal storage compartment. Now, it's pretty simple. These are all parts that are smaller so that you guys can build your deck like this, take good measurements, and I can ship all these parts to you, no problem. Now that I got this whole part figured out, I'm not gonna put it in permanently because I'm gonna take it out and I'm gonna cut it and make it fit to this 45-degree kick right here. That is all figured out though to the point where I can continue on and work back because this deck height is dead set. And everything I need to put in here is gonna be simple to get in. I do have to come back with a piece from here up and we'll continue on this same wall up through here and all the way up to the sleeve piece that's going in here. Then I'll end up putting this piece back in the top to finish all this off. But this piece right here, this is pretty cool. Check this piece out. So this whole piece right here ended up being 32 inches across, and it ended up being 25 inches from here to here. Now, the way I figured that out was I basically measured from here back to my live well, and I wanted to put 2 pieces of 3/4 inch foam or 1 piece of 1.5 up against this live well. And look at this. Pretty much dead on 1.5 inches. Same thing over there. So the way I did that, I left this raw because once I put the sheet foam in here and I tape all this off, I'm going to come back and shoot this into the floor. Then I'll come back with another piece, which is going to be a complete pan. It's going to have bends on 4 sides that are at least 1 inch or 1.5 inches. It's going to attach to the floor here. It's going to attach up underneath it here with rivets into this center brace that goes across the entire deck. Then it will have a turn back on the port and starboard so I can attach it into my sheeting that's going to go vertically up these walls right here, because they're not going to attach these walls from here up to this. They're going to be a little bit short because I'm going to have to run wires. They're going to come through here and across and back into where my switch panel is going to be. So I got to leave a little bit of a gap. That's why I dropped this down right here. And once all these hatches drop in and everything's turf, you won't see that unless you stick your head all the way up underneath. And it works out well because that allows you a place for you to pass wires through, because you're going to have a ton of wires in here. I mean, this build is going to have a shit ton of wires going through it. It's got all types of LEDs and stuff going into it. It's going to be sick. So I got to leave room for me to make all that magic happen once we get to that stage of the game. But this piece right here, I'm going to put some foam up underneath this before I permanently install that. I got to wrap this before I even put that in. I just wanted to show you how this works. So if you get to this stage of the game and you got your live well set, which is the first component you need to do, then you can come back and measure. You can say, hey, I need a pan this size, and then I need a pan that's going to be this size to fit in front of it. And then all these sheetings, they go vertically. Those are going to be flat sheets. You can just cut those whatever size you need, come back and rivet them in through the lip that's in the pan like this one. It makes it super simple. I'm going to go ahead and figure out some of this framing now. All this stuff is cakework, and this is not stuff that I need to address now. What I need to address is getting all of the framing finished up so I can build a hatch. I've got 2 hatches left for this boat that I'm going to build. Maybe 1. I don't know. I'm going to see how this works out, but I'm definitely going to come across here and back to this rib back here with a step. I'm going to put a hatch in there. It's going to have a cooler in it. So I need to figure out all of this and this framing back to here because I already have all the hatches back here, and I'm trying to get all this stuff figured out so I can send these hatches off to the powder coating. And I'm actually going to get this entire boat scanned. For those guys that know what that means, well, it's going to change the entire layout of this boat. It's going to change everything for me. So it's going to be insane, but I got to get these hatches done because I need to get it to that point, because once I get it scanned, it's going to take a couple weeks to get back and, you know, make all the magic happen with that. So I'm going to start building from here back. I'm going to figure out the step. I'm going to figure out my hatch. And then once I get all that done, I'm going to be ahead of the game. Let's get back to work. All right, guys, so there is your layout. We got our step right here. This is going to be our hatch right here. I'm keeping all of these hatches in the center in line. That way they're all the same width. It's going to look good that way. And this is basically a 28-inch by about 9-inch drop-in hatch, and it's going to have a cooler in it. So that cooler can come down and recess in between these floor ribs right here, and it's going to sit down about 8 inches. So it's going to give you a pretty good size cooler. I mean, it'll be big enough for you to fit probably a 12-pack of beer and some sandwiches. And it's going to be sick. And the way I did this whole side over here is basically going to kick back and down to the floor a 90-degree angle. Well, this side over here, I put this angle in here, and this angle is basically just going to be for support, because I'm going to come back on the top of this and I'm going to sheet this. Now, I brought this out 7 inches from the side of the hole over to here, and that's how far I'm going to bring this piece. This piece is going to come over, and it's going to kick down at an angle. Because if you look at this straight down, you can see that my floor is going to stop right here, obviously. So this side of the floor is going to be bent at an angle. It's going to come up to here. And then this piece is going to come over. This will come down about 1.5 inches and keep that same angle. So this whole side over here is going to be sloped at an angle. It's not much, but it's enough that you're going to be able to tell that it's not 90 degrees. It's going to look good. It's about 75, 70 degrees, something like that. But the way I'm going to do this now is I'm going to build this floor. The floor is going to be a little bit different than a lot of the boats that I build, because normally I build a square floor. Well, obviously it's not going to be square because I got this big kick over here. And the way I build these boats, I don't frame out the whole bottom the way I did this top. I use my floor piece as my angle frame. Floor that's going to drop in here is going to be a pin. And this side comes up here, it's going to be raw. I'm going to attach an angle into here. And basically that's just going to be where I can shoot some rivets down into it to hold it in there. I'm going to pack all this floor space in here with foam, but I'm going to attach that angle across there. So when I bring this piece over here, this is my adjustment. I can slide it from the front to the back and allow me to have a little bit of play in my floor. But the floor is going to be a 3-sided pan. It's going to bend up 1.5 inches. This piece is going to come across here and down, and the angle for this is going to be the same angle that's bent onto this side. It's going to be like a 70-something degree angle, but then on the face, it's going to be a 90-degree angle. And then on the side over there, it's going to be a 90-degree angle turned up. It's also going to have this 45 in here, and it's going to come back to where this is at and kick back at a 90-degree angle. Now, this is going to be a little bit tricky because this piece is our step. And the way this is set up, it hits a little bit past this, but it's only like 2 inches. So when this floor turns up 1.5 inches, you got 1.5 inches here, then I can just cut a sheet. It's going to run right across the face of this. I'll rivet it in here, and then I'll turf over this whole thing and finish it out. And on this side over here, I'm going to keep the same angle that I do going all the way back to this back corner of the back bench seat down to the floor across here. This is also going to slope back at a slight angle. And I'll just bend it back and attach it in here. So the whole thing is going to be kept on the same degree, the same angle. It's going to be sick. This whole thing adds like a whole nother step into the boat. Literally, it's a step into the boat. It's going to be a little cooler, and it's really going to set this thing off. I'm going to go ahead and install a floor up underneath of this hatch right here. This is going to be like a big storage hatch he has in here. So I'm going to put a pan in here for a floor, and I'm going to try to figure out some of these internals and get this thing wrapped up, because tomorrow I'm going to build the hatch that's going to drop in here with the cooler, and I'm going to build this big floor piece right here. Let's get back to work. All right, guys, so today at the shop, I made this floor and I made this top piece over here that's gonna finish off this side. I didn't have a chance to make the hatch for this and the whole cooler box. I'm gonna build that tomorrow, but I just wanted to get this done because this helps me out big time. I can go ahead and install all of this, and I can start putting the foam underneath here and finish up my framing, and then figure out my sheet pieces that are gonna finish all this off. Now you see how this works. This piece is just sitting up here, but it's resting on that angle that I welded in here. And the way this whole thing comes back and bends down, you can see it's in line with this bottom piece that's on my floor. That way I can just drop a sheet across here and rivet it in. And I'm gonna throw another cup holder over here. This will be where you're driving from. And it's gonna have a graph up here on some type of swing arm. It's gonna be sick. And then the floor, you can really see and get an understanding of what I was talking about, because this is my framing piece that comes up. And I can run a sheet here, same thing on this side, same thing over there. So building the floor as a pan, it really alleviates a lot of the framing you would have to do on the bottom of the boat. That's how I do all my rigs. And I've learned a lot along the years, and this is one thing that I learned a couple of years ago, and it just really makes a lot of sense to me, saves me a lot of time. Now that I got these pieces figured out, I'm gonna go ahead and pack underneath of these ribs with this foam, and I'm gonna get the floor permanently installed. That way I can at least stand or sit in this boat and work on some of this other stuff. And I'm gonna get this thing figured out. I'm gonna cut a hole for my cup holder, and I'm gonna try to put some of these other pans and internals and stuff in here. I got a lot to do, guys. This boat is not gonna build itself, but this thing is looking dope. Let's get back to work. All right, guys, so there it is. What do you think? That's the layout. Insane, right? This thing is super dope. It's pimping. I mean, this is big build stuff right here. It's big boy stuff. This is really dope layout. I love the way this whole step came out. I mean, look at that thing. The thing is sick. This cooler right there. Got a little bit of sheeting left to do up on the sides. But I mean, the layout's done. The thing looks so good. Tons of hatches in here. Now I just gotta make all the magic happen up underneath of these hatches, but my God, look at that thing. That is a piece of art right there. Whew, sexy. All right, guys, what do you think? The layout is insane, right? This bitch is crazy. I set out with the intent to build the baddest John boat ever, and I think we are right on schedule. This thing is coming in on top of the food chain. All these hatches, all this metalwork in here, this stuff is elite. I literally just winged it. As I went, I just made the pieces as I need them. Some people put jigsaw puzzles together. 1,000-piece puzzle, well, this is my 1,000-piece puzzle. I like to do it as a piece. As I get to it, I build it, I need it, I make it, I put it in the boat, and that's where we're at right now. But where we're at in this stage of the game, I've got a little bit of metalwork left to do. Now, one thing I did not tell you guys about is that I'm going to change up these top gunnels up here. These things are getting changed up. If you watched the King Neptune build, then you saw I took a piece of 1x3 by 1/8 rectangular tubing, and I basically cut 1.25 inch groove right in the center of it, and I dropped them right over top of this. Now I'm gonna do that with this because I want spaces where I can hide my lights, LED lights, strip lights, both sides. So I need something for that. One thing I did on the boat, I hadn't done before, but really wanted to, because I deal with a lot of these well builds, and I hate the top rail. It's round, it makes it impossible to put lights on, mount things on. So I actually left the round rail on there, and I took a piece of 1x3 rectangular tubing, 1/8 inch thick. I cut it in a table saw with an aluminum blade, 1.25 inch, and dropped it right over the top rail that's existing on this boat, and then welded it up underneath the sides, front and back, and seamed it together in pieces so that it could keep the same contour that the original rail had on it. So yeah, I'm very happy with the way it turned out. I think it actually changes the whole look of the boat. It makes it a lot more aggressive, and it gives me a place to hide some of my LED lights and mount anything onto. Plus it gives you the ability to step on it and walk up and down the boat if you needed to, you know, tippy toe on the rail as opposed to a round rail. Not only that, but when we get this thing scanned, we are going to scan this top rail all the way down. It's a 3-inch wide rail. It will allow us a spot where we can put an entire piece of turf running all the way from the bow back to the back of the boat. This thing is gonna be dope. It's gonna have logos and everything in it. I can't wait to finish this project up. I just wanna get this turf in here. This thing's getting painted, it's getting wrapped. There's so much going on with this build, and we're trying to get this thing wrapped up in such little time. So it's a lot to deal with, guys, but hey, that's what I do. I appreciate you guys watching. Hit that like and subscribe button. If y'all want any merch, check that out on tricktens.net. I still got a bunch of merch. I would love to hook you guys up and have y'all supporting the channel. If you need some products, send me an email at professionalwelding@gmail.com. Go check out our website, Trick Tens John Boats. There's a lot of information up there too. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see y'all next time. Let's get back to work.